Hello, my wonderful human friends. We are back, but we are not playing video games tonight. Oh no, we are back to interviewing again. And look who we have with us. We have a wonderful little puppy with us. At least I think that's the icon. Maji, if you want to unmute yourself, you can. It is Maji-Chan joining us tonight. Hail everybody in the chat. It is so wonderful to be with you guys. Maji, how are you doing?
Doing good, and yes, you are correct. There is a little doggo in the chat, in the icon.
Okay, good. Sometimes I'll think it's like a fox or something, and I just want to be sure. I'm like, I hope I got that right. So, yeah.
So what it is just, the actual thing was my dog used to sleep like this. He was a Great Pyrenees cross, so he had a really bushy tail and a big head.
Hmm.
But nah, this was basically the picture of a peak solar eclipse that I had took that when him and I were camping on and was able to see a total solar eclipse. Animated Moon was nice enough to draw a picture of him inside the picture I took, and
Oh, that's awesome.
he's
I love
almost
that.
dead on accurate if you see the original picture I took.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I gotta say, like Animated Moon he did a standout job with that photo. I've always loved that. It's for one, it's really cute, but it's also extremely stylish.
Mhm. But yeah,
Also,
no, it's a real solar flare.
Zom joins us in the Twitch chat. He says, "Hail, my lord. Hail, Zom. Welcome to the chat." We are talking with Maji-chan tonight, specifically about, let me see if I can get the cover up here. One second. Do, 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 do. The Legend of Shalar. It's so glorious. Look at it. That great cover. Let me zoom it up just a little bit. There we are. Uh,
Not quite on YouTube.
Not quite. So, Maji, tell us, first of all, I am curious, who did the cover for your book?
Okay, so the cover is actually a fusion of two different artists. Moon did the coloring. So
Oh,
the shadow guy and then the actual flames itself, the background,
yeah.
that was all Moon. He did that. Daniel had his comic book artist do the figures.
I mean, all things considered, I think it looks pretty spectacular. Like, especially with it being a collaboration between two different artists with two unique styles, like they blend together very well. I gotta say.
Oh, it was fun. So the cover took about a month total. So what it was Animated Moon originally did. So the shadow guy was originally writing on top of a ram by itself,
Uh-huh.
but Daniel thought it would be. For those who don't know, Daniel P. Riley is my editor, but he was also my tutor. He was the one teaching me how to write, which we could go to that if you want later or something. But he uh he thought it was too grim dark for the story I was telling, which, it's kind of a big deal. You want your cover to match the tone of your story.
That is true.
And so he came up with a different color or cover, and I didn't like how it looked. I thought it was too childish. And so we went back and forth for about a month, and this was the final result. But I actually did learn a lot from that because it did teach me. Nice thing is, my Daniel's an awesome editor. If you ever need an independent editor, he's a great person to go to. But it taught me to focus more on my target audience versus what I liked, and more importantly, the importance of matching your cover to your story tone.
Yeah, absolutely. Expectations mean a lot, and let it not be said that someone shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Judging a book by its cover is a great indication on what to expect.
Hmm.
Yeah. Zom also says in the chat, is that Minotaur wielding a Maquahedal?
Yes, he is. That is his weapon. It's his ancestral weapon.
Oh, I love it already. Let me see if I can zoom in. This is gonna look jank, but I swear it's worth it. Let me see if I can zoom in on that Maquahedal. As much as I can anyway. I'm not gonna do it too much anyway. but even so, I love the look of this. I like the balance especially because it's like you want it to be sort of like adventurous and like I'm imagining to a certain degree somewhat lighthearted, but at the same time you want the cool factor there. That's kind of what
Mhm.
I'm seeing with this cover.
Well, that and there was a balance because, like I said, the first cover, the one that Moon did for me, oh, I really loved it, but it really was too grim dark. Same time, the story actually revolves around a huge natural disaster.
Oh,
So it is a mix of dark, but because I kept it a lighthearted with the characters and as well as I tried to the theme of the story is duty and find hope in the small things. So I didn't want it to be like broody berserker grim dark when in actuality there is tones of good and lightheartedness in it as well.
right. If anything, I'm trying to think of the right term. What is it? Not Hope Bright. Is it Grim Bright? Am I thinking of where it's like the world itself is kind of like can be dark when it wants to be, but it's like the overall tone of the story is like ultimately like
Mhm.
optimistic.
Yes. And I mean it so throughout the story I actually have artists. Um I hired I hired four different artists, which was kind of cool because it once again blend the different art styles together. So like in the bleak moments, it's kind of like a sketch journal. Animated Moon did those ones, the town and of the oncoming disaster, where it looks like it was drawn from somebody who was there witnessing the disaster unfold. But then the like the animal characters have this surreal effect that look more real to them, and then at the end, I end with a child's drawing because it shows a hope and a new beginning.
Yeah, and I like the mix of styles there. I think that's very smart. Also, Zom says I like how the colors draw attention to the middle. Yeah, I agree. I love the emphasis put. The coloring's very smart. I'm a big fan of the contrast. I think that does a lot right there, honestly.
No,
But
Moon did a fabulous job. Sorry.
no, you're good. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So I am curious, what is the myth behind this legend? This is the legend of Shalar, after all. How would you say did this all start?
Well, actually, you were there,
Well,
but
yeah, I was there. Uh, some of this is a rhetorical question, okay? But like it was like a few years ago, and my memory is just a little hazy from the event, even though certain parts of it I remember rather vividly.
so what it was oh, if you guys hear stuff in the background, I apologize. I live right next to a military base, and right now everything is happening.
Oh no,
So
you're good. I actually don't hear a thing, so you're perfectly fine.
okay, awesome. But yeah, if you hear random noises in the background, that's just the base being the base. So what started off as a gag between friends? So Lord Otter and I had a mutual friend that ran his own channel at the time, and he featured a lot of indie work.
Yep.
And one of the peeps in the chat that we all knew was trolling him one day on his stream, looking for this Legend of Shalar book that he wanted him to cover because he had his comic shop Wednesday where uh, the guests can pick a book and they take a look at it and see if it's worth getting or not. It was kind of like a window shopping for indie authors. It was kind of cool concept.
Yeah.
But so after about 5 minutes, maybe 10, looking back and forth for this book, the the main guy, Drink with Crazy, realized that it wasn't even there and that everybody was just pulling his leg. So it we all got together and started to troll him with it. Well, what started as a troll actually evolved into a full-on novel.
Yeah, so I'll add a little on to the story myself. I did play a little bit of a hand in it. Not much, but just a little bit. Like from what I remember, it was Billy Bob Sack. He ended up getting a group of us together to as part of a lark to make our own stories. Each of us were making our own short stories, but with in your case, The Legend of Shalar, I think you went a little farther.
I kind of destroyed the short part.
Hey, you went way farther than a lot of us, and honestly, that is commendable. That is respectable. I have to give respect to that.
So, if I remember right, was it a 16 or 20,000 word limit?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was like, and keep in mind that this was like sort of like a writer's challenge we were giving ourselves for short stories. I think it was like
It was for fun.
10,000 words or something like that at most.
Yeah, I destroyed that.
Yeah. Mine was like
Okay,
5,000 words or something. It was a short story that I just kind of wrote for a laugh.
I remember reading it. I thought it was funny. I don't remember how it went, but I remember liking it.
I remember just like vague moments and scenes, but yeah, that enough about what I wrote. Like tell us a bit about how the Legend of Shalar started out. Like some of the overall ideas, kind of like what like aside from like the joke, of course, kind of like some of your inspirations. What kind of gave you that initial spark?
Okay, so it just started out, it was supposed to be the short. But here's the thing. I set it up. It was supposed to be the original, the very, very original story. I outlined it, all of that. It was supposed to be where it wasn't a D&D. It was not a D&D, but it was a tabletop RPG game that everyone was playing, but you didn't know it was at the time. So they were going through this venture, and then it was supposed to be a got you turtle party kill. Everybody's sitting there slumped at the table, like, oh man. But then that didn't happen. The reason for that was I got rid of the whole tabletop aspect altogether. Was because I started to fall in love with the adventure, but not necessarily that adventure. It was okay, so if this happened in this world, what happens next? And then what also happens after that? Shalar was supposed to be the tabletop game
Yeah.
originally. That was my joke, was that the Shalar was the name of the tabletop game. But I just kept asking and asking, and then I realized that that whole thing had to be scrapped, and so I wrote a non-official version. But once again, the curiosity in me of, okay, so all this stuff happened,
Hmm.
but what about the aftermath? Well, that became my prologue to the whole story.
Oh.
The prologue itself was hints of the original story that I got rid of. And then that's when I started my actual book. So the prologue reads completely different than the rest of the book. The prologue reads like somebody telling you the story,
Yeah.
and then it takes you about 1,000 years into the future and dumps you there.
It's amazing how some of the story ideas you'll kind of like scrap at the beginning will sometimes end up coming full circle. They'll re-enter the story in a way you did not expect. Would you say
So
that
Shalar,
is a situation that happened here?
oh yeah, hands down. Shalar went from being a tabletop game, just a bad tabletop game where everybody gets killed, and it was supposed to be a gotcha, you know, that was originally written that the light switch after everybody gets blown up, the light switches on, and wife says, "All right, time for everybody to go home. I want my husband back." Like that was how it was supposed to end. But that's not at all what happened. What
Yeah.
happened was Shalar became the land and the planet, and everything else followed.
One might say it became a legend.
Exactly. That's exactly how that happened. So it
Oh,
became a little mini epic fantasy.
yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So we talked a little bit about it. Is there anything about the plot you'd like to share with us? Just kind of like a basic rundown, like trying to avoid spoilers, of course, but how would you generally describe this book to the layman?
Okay, so if you like old school epic fantasies, I'm not talking like the 12 novel long Sword of Truth style, but that's writing style.
Yeah.
That is more the way this is based. Um, when I say it's a mini epic fantasy, from it's only the paperback and hardback is only 290 pages or 98. It might be 298, but I mean I have like 6 illustrations, so that takes up some of the room.
Yeah, and
But
we've got a few of those illustrations with us tonight. We have the cover, of
mm,
course. Let's see here. We've got this big Minotaur boy here. We're not in Cambric
and
Creek anymore, ladies and gentlemen.
there happens he you can't really tell, but he's staring at a little otter.
Oh my god.
Did you not realize that?
No, I did not actually. Where is the otter in this little like image here? For some reason I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, see, it's the head right there in front of his arm.
Oh my god, on the left there.
Yeah, he's talking to the otter. He was about to pound him.
Oh no. Don't pound the otter. Come on.
This one was done by Skunk's workshop.
Oh, I love
He did
Skunk's Workshop. He makes great stuff.
hmm. He did this one in Alvar. He's the one who did the realistic animals. But so I don't want to get too much into it, but what caused this scene is the otter throws the spear down and climbs up it and is standing on the top of the spear like a flag while he's challenging. So it's, like a 2.5 foot tall otter challenging this 7.5 foot tall minotaur. And so he's looking down at him, talking to him. Well, kind of. Trying not to pound him.
Yeah, yeah, please don't pound the water weasel. The water weasel wouldn't like that very much.
But yeah, no. Skunks did that.
Also, we have Zom in the chat. He says, quite a handsome lad. You do you, Zom.
See the back of his head.
Readout also says, Otter, otter. We must say otter like Peter.
Actually,
Welcome
it's
to
me
the
like
stream.
Clipperton.
All right. But yeah, Maji, would you say that there is a certain scene or moment that kind of made you realize in this book that this was the type of story you wanted to write? I think we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I wonder if we can dive a little deeper into that.
Well, so actually, because it's a prologue, it's not really spoiling anything
Yeah.
because it's a totally different story. So in the prologue, um, it talks about a mad king combining with a bunch of dark wizards, and they open up this. Basically, they open up a black hole into space to pull down fragment of the sun.
Oh, quite a
Yeah,
start.
but it ends up literally ripping the planet apart and doesn't destroy the planet, but it rips the continent apart and brings up a big continental divide. Uh, Formation of the mountains, all sorts of chaos raining down. And not to go too spiritual here, but one of my favorite scripture stories is when it's First Kings. I think it's 19. I could be wrong. I'm going off of the King James version, so we all know that's different every version. But where he talks about the the Lord told Elijah to go up to the mountain and he would meet him.
Hmm.
But then you had the earthquake, the fires, the tornadoes, and all that. But the Lord wasn't there, but he was there in the calm. Well, when I wrote that, I wasn't thinking of that scripture, but I had it all there. I had the I had the fiery tornado being pulled down to the atmosphere because they ripped open the hole into the sun. And I had because granted this is fantasy, so I had a little bit of leeway.
Right. You have a bit
That
of
would cause
creative
the
license.
yeah, that would cause the planet to implode in 3 nanoseconds.
Yeah.
But I had the mountains rise, the magma rip, the earthquakes. It just like destroyed the land and ended up being a battle between the immortal Fae and humans, all within a matter of minutes. But well, it wasn't minutes. It took them long enough to get there. But you know what I mean.
Right. It still sounds like a case of escalating tension, though, to say the least.
Oh yeah, I mean they nearly destroyed everything.
Oh,
But so it was one of those where it's like, okay, so how did everything recover after? Did they just move on? Did they forget about it? Did how would you live with yourself knowing that's what you nearly destroyed your planet? You wiped out an entire race.
Yeah.
But that's why I fell in love with the aftermath. Was because as I was like, so what happens next? How do you move on? In fact, one of the characters, Adelaide, I don't want to spoil too much, but you find out that humans were so ashamed of their history that they tried to rewrite it, erase it, forget it was real, and eventually, over time, was able to mock it down to it was nothing but a fairy tale.
I actually love that as a world building detail. For one, that's an incredibly human thing to do when you are so ashamed about something that either your ancestors did or you had a secondhand part in playing, and there's no way to deny it. You deny it by fiction. Makes sense.
Hmm.
I love that.
And so that now you can see why I started to fall in love with the aftermath.
Yeah, I'm with Zom. He says lots of story potential in the aftermath. I completely agree.
Hmm. And so this is about set about 1,000 years later. Turns out, it's not spoiling anything because this is my. Here's my thing on spoilers. If it happens within the first 3 chapters, it's not really spoiling anything.
Yeah, I'll
But
agree with that.
so it turns out the Fae didn't know how to stop the calamity because they managed to pull down part of the sun into the atmosphere. And soon as anybody who knows anything about gases, fire, anything like that knows, soon as fire hits air, it 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 can consume it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
That
real.
that might
And then
actually be an understatement. But yeah, go on.
But then, of course, it started to pull in because it is technically a ball of gas. It started its own gravitational pull and started bringing in, feeding off the organics and all of that. So it was growing inside the atmosphere, even with the black hole shut, because it had all this food, it had all this air. It was, it's an out of control star inside the atmosphere. But so the Fae, because Fae by design, I made this on purpose. The
Hmm.
Fae by design can't think out, even though they're immortal, they can't go outside their own realities. They are bound by the laws of nature. Humans, on the other hand, how did I put this? I know how I put it, but I'm trying to remember exactly how I put it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Humans. Oh, Alvar, one of the characters, Alvar. He's like humans can create their imagination. They try to make it better. They aren't bound by laws and traditions. That's what makes them so unique to the planet. They aren't connected enough to be stuck in tune with it. They can do what they want, and it makes him curious about the human race.
Hmm.
So the Fae by nature couldn't stop a creation made by man because it was outside their limitations, even though they were these almighty, immortal creatures. So what they had to do was literally most of them gave up their immortality. A lot of them died on the spot, but it was the only way to give the planet a chance to live and freeze this star in place. But here's the thing: everything is affected by time and gravity. Everything changes. All the suns rotate, the galaxies change, over time. 1,000 years is plenty of time to create just enough change to weaken the spell.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Even though they're immortal and they gave up their immortality, there's not enough consistency to stay there. And then at the peak of the solar eclipse, it throws in just enough of the gravitational pull off, it fractures the spell and releases it.
Oh. So so excuse my French
Like,
here, but shit's about to get real.
yes.
Aha.
And none of this is spoiling it. There's a. It's actually, I think part of it is in the actual blurb.
Hmm. I was also
But
curious about this. I'm going to divert ever so slightly, but my curiosity is overriding my better senses. when did you say to yourself that this story needs an otter? I am curious. I just
all
want to
good
know.
all good fantasies have a talking animal.
Exactly.
And so okay. Technically, all right. So C.S. Lewis,
Hmm.
my favorite character in the C.S. Lewis series, Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, specifically that one, is Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, and not
Oh,
because of the beaver jokes.
yeah.
But that's you guys are about to go into deep lore if we go on that side of things. But Mr. and Mrs. Beaver. So he's the one who finds Lucy. He's the one that takes her home and, is protecting her and stuff. After, they return, he brings Lucy and all of them in. But they were just such a sweet couple. They were
Yeah.
joking with each other. They poked fun at each other. They even poked fun at each other. Like she poked fun at his weight, and he just chuckled like it was nothing. But it was just, and at the end of the book, he's still up in armor, even though he's not much of a fighter, and still willing to stand and protect them. And then, of course, she's worried for her husband. It's just a cute little pair.
Yeah, I
But
absolutely love that. So forgive me, like this is going to be a bit of a shocker, but I've actually never read any of the Narnia books. It's
hmm,
been on my list. I actually didn't. I hadn't had the chance to grow up with the Narnia books. It's something that I really need to make amends with. But one comparison I will make, which sounds fairly similar, I will also think of the Redwall books, where you have like, for one, it's a setting of like cutesy animal characters, but it's also a case of where it's like, even though many of them aren't terribly capable, they still have to be brave when push comes to shove. That's what it sounds like.
yeah.
Yeah, but I love that. I love that you have an otter in your story. It means so much to yours truly. I feel properly represented. This is true DEI done right.
Well, the otter was kind of inspired by you because you were part of the original writers group, but it just felt so naturally to write in a talking animal just because, fairy tales often have one. It always has that cute little sidekick that's full of snark, or just in general, it's not that hard to not picture one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But nah, actually it worked out great because each of the characters, there's multiple characters, but there's five main or sub main characters. The five of the big adventurers, I should say.
I hate to let you know, Maji, but you're making me go cross-eyed with how much I am pleased by the otter representation.
Oh well, I don't know you feel like this or not. So Gino was my grammar checker. I don't know if you guys know who Gino or King Bob. Gino/King Bob, it's the same guy. But I had him proofread my rough draft and stuff before I went back and rewrote it with an editor. He And when it came to the otter's dialogue, him and I would ask, "What would a pompous otter say?"
Exactly. Exactly. I love it so much though. Yeah, but I've interacted a fair amount with Gino myself, and he helped me. He beta read a lot of my books as well, so like I can I can give a second opinion on that. Like he absolutely does a wonderful job in kind of like tightening up a script, plot
Mhm.
points, stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely hear you there.
But yeah, no. But in actuality, the otter comes across as a pompous ass. Sorry, I hope you don't mind
No,
me saying
I
that
am
on
a
your thing.
pompous ass.
But in actuality, you find out he genuinely cares about his subjects. And the whole reason why he's being a pompous ass is because he has a very delicate job. His job is Lord of the Rivers. But here's the thing: in order to prove you are worthy of Lord of the Rivers, he actually says this somewhere in one of the dialogues. You have to be proven worthy of the Nereid magic. But the Nereids are water creatures. They don't care about life. That because they're immortal spirits, all they care about is protecting water. But where Milak is the lord of the river, he understands there's a balance of life because his subjects need the fish, it needs the plant life, it needs everything around the river, the ecosystem basically to survive. And so he's in a very tough spot because he has to prove to the Nereids he is worthy of carrying their magic as a mortal who really don't value life at all. But at the same time, he very much values life because one thing goes wrong, his entire kingdom collapses.
I'm gonna have to slightly disagree with you, Maji. We otters don't consider the equilibrium of nature. We just want fish.
Yeah, well, without fish, you won't eat.
Yeah, true, true. Milak is being a lot smarter than I am.
But it forces him to be an ass, but in actuality, he genuinely cares about the river. There's one point where he's like, I can name every pool spawn and schools in the entire river, but I don't recognize it now.
Yeah.
Like it almost defeats him because he has to admit it, but he doesn't even admit it in the human language. He calls it human barking. He's the only one of the hydrolings, the basically the water creatures that can speak, but that's because of the Nereid magic.
Oh,
Everybody else is mute.
yeah. I didn't know that, but that makes a lot of sense. So the reason why I can speak human language is because of Nereids. It
Hmm.
Whereas before I just squeaked a lot and threw rocks.
Yeah.
Let's do some chats here real quick. Zom says, I'm still waiting for my lord to make a cameo in Steel and Stormbright. Don't worry, it'll eventually come around. It's just a matter of time. Readout says, you cannot escape the beavers. The Orange Man removed them from the Valley of Death. Now they come for you. Is a strange reference to real world National Park Service events.
Yeah.
I only grant him the rank of lieutenant on my shows. We are a constitutional republic, not a monarchy, but there is always a chance we may ultimately brevet him. I hope I'm saying that right. The brigadier general when the hyper war ends. Oh my god.
General Otter.
All right. But yeah, on to my next question I had. What would you say was kind of like your biggest aha moment with this story? Was it something to do with like the plot, the story, the world, or like one of your characters? I know I'm asking a loaded question here.
Oh, it's actually fine because if anybody saw the other stream I was on, they probably know the answer, but I'll go ahead and repeat it for your viewers.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
keep in mind, this took about 3 years, almost 4 years in the making. Um, but I had to go through several rewrites. One of the third draft, when I finally gave up and hired an editor because I realized I needed one. There was okay. Back up for 2 seconds before I go into this, so it makes more sense. My story has two climaxes. The way I set it up, it's kind of like a roller coaster where you got that big climb and then down and then up another loop and then down.
Hmm.
Because, the way I set it up, the disaster happens, then you got the aftermath, and then you find out, oh, wait, there's a villain trying to keep you from saving the world. But, so in that down part, the before the second climax, I called it the lull. It was like about 3 chapters, and my chapters at the time, Daniel went through and shortened them, but at the time was like 15 to 20 pages of nothing but dialogue. It's read like a bad Disney script,
I
like a
mean,
Star Wars episode.
so this is something that I've noticed, like especially whenever you're still fairly new to writing, it's like getting into that rhythm of writing an organic dialogue scene that feels natural, and also kind of like interspersing kind of like narrative description, like what the characters are thinking, like tonal elements, stuff like that.
It was just very lull, and I didn't like it. And I'm like, I'm the author, and I hate this. There is no way my readers are going to like this.
Oh, trust me, I know that feeling all too well.
But so Daniel is a great editor if you ever get a chance. But Daniel's like, "Well, this is how you have it written." And I'm like, "You're right, it is." So after avoiding 2 weeks, because at the time I was doing tutoring with him because I asked him to teach me how to be a better writer.
Hmm.
But after about 2 weeks of avoiding him, because I wanted to figure out how to solve this, I actually highlighted that whole thing, all 3 chapters, and deleted it all. Completely deleted it all. It was actually the the introduction to the otter character was part of that.
Oh,
And so it took me a little bit, but I was actually talking. I don't know if you guys know who Ultimate Kahuna is. I know Otter does, but
I don't know him at all. Okay, I'm just a cross-eyed otter who wants fish.
but I was talking to Kahuna, and then it hit me like a lightning bolt. I ended up writing an all new action sequence, which was great because it allowed me to add more depth to an already established character, some more character development for him. But I completely made the scene chaotic. It allowed me to write in a way that the otter character could be introduced that felt more natural than just talking. And then on top of that, by adding the new character, I was able to show off the magic system I created. So instead of having a repeat of the same things that over and over and over again, because you were introducing a new main character to the story, I was able to use his magic and show what was going on.
I feel like that makes for some of the best moments whenever you're writing like a scene or something is whenever you're like writing one moment or one element and you realize that it's not only doing like one thing, it's doing like two, three, maybe even four things all kind of
Mhm.
like naturally. It sounds like what that was.
Well, so what it was originally, the otter was supposed to, death, mayhem, destruction comes. He comes up the river with a Nereid and is trying to talk to the humans for the first time. That was originally how it was done.
Hmm.
But it didn't feel natural. And then by changing it up and creating chaos and a little bit of tension, it allowed him to come in like a superstar, throw his spear down and mount up onto the pole like in front of the on like the picture showed. He was able to mount up onto a spear pole and hang like a flag, and you knew that that guy was a noble. He wasn't just some otter coming out of nowhere. That guy had guts to stand in front of a 7.5 foot tall minotaur and try to demand respect.
He's a water weasel like no otter. Yeah,
But it
oh, go ahead.
no, you're good. But it just expanded that and made it feel a lot more smooth. And then that way, for because there's still, a little bit, is quite a bit of dialogue because they got to figure out what to do. The world's destroyed. The river's pretty much unlivable, and yet they got to stop this situation because technically the fireball's still growing in the forest.
Yeah, absolutely. I know this kind of feeds into the next question I had, us talking about kind of like the harder moments that came along with like you writing the story out, especially in the first few drafts. But I was curious what kept you writing even in those tougher and more troublesome moments. And I'm gonna follow it up with a even more like hard to answer question with how that influenced your writing in the end. But I'll go ahead and ask, what would you say the toughest parts were in writing this book?
Actually, it was when I had to admit I needed help.
I feel that.
So what it is I'm very dyslexic, so if I write anything, I have to have a proofreader. That's been like that since day one. um,
I'll
but
say this, just if it's any consolation, I had a very similar moment with my writing as well, when it felt like I was going in circles. And for me, it wasn't an official editor, but it was like a really solid beta reader who's had editing experience helped tremendously.
mm, so to kind of give you a rough idea, so at this point, I've been working on the story for about a year and a half.
Hmm.
Right. I this is second, technically third draft if you include the original story that eventually evolved into the prologue summary. But I had been working on it about a year and a half. I thought I was ready for beta readers. At the time, I didn't realize there was a difference between alpha readers and beta readers, but that's because I never written anything before, so I didn't bother to do the research on it.
Trust me,
But
I had to learn that as well. You're not alone. You're not alone.
but I handed it out to six, well, technically five. The six doesn't count because I hired him to be my editor. But I handed it out to a bunch of people, and only two people finished it other than Daniel, and that was Black Knight and R.H. Snow. Black Knight was nice enough to give me, like, he sent back the PDF I sent him
Hmm.
full of notes of things that could be better, things that ideas where he like say expo dump here, he gave me back a full list. The other one, Snow, I love her to death. She does not want to hurt people's feelings. All she could say was I like the characters.
I feel like that ends up being ironically some of the harshest criticism is whenever you have a lot of people you know and you respect and they're very nice people. It
Mm,
but it's one of those things where it's like you can tell they're trying to hold back their blunt honest thoughts. And
mm.
that makes some of the
And
hardest criticism.
and then Daniel, he's like he read it and then he's like, "Okay, so I have a question for you. Or is this for publishing or is this for just a fun story to give to friends?" And that right there was all I needed to hear. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, can you make me a client? I want to learn how to read this or write this because I believed in the story.
Yeah.
The story was there. I truly knew I could feel it that it was a good story, but I wished it was written by a better writer. And when I said that to Daniel, even though we're in a situation here where we're talking through a screen, I swear I could see him pop his knuckles and say, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
But I had already been working on it a year and a half, so another year and a half wasn't going to be a big deal.
I I I and I'll be honest, that is some harsh criticism to give to yourself, but the fact that you put one foot after another and said to yourself, "All right, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to improve." That speaks for a lot right there. A lot of writers don't get that far.
And I hope that anybody that reads the book will tell me what they think, honestly, because that'll make me better for the next one. Whether it's another add on to Shalar or if it's a totally different book.
So would you say this is kind of like a moment where it's like, and I've come across this, and it seems that a lot of writers do, where it's like that moment where you think the book is done, but then you have somebody else read it, and you're like, oh, I actually need to add quite a bit more before it's actually done. If that makes
Oh, yeah. So, actually, like I said, Daniel is great editor, even better tutor. I can he knows what he's doing. It turns out he actually he doesn't just do it for his side, but he used to be a teacher, so he actually knows what he's doing.
yeah,
But so the very first day, I called it writing boot camp because what it was Daniel switched from being a good friend to professional mode, which he's really good at doing that. Once you put him into professional mode, there's no friend zone anymore. But
yeah, as it
but
should be. I sincerely believe it. You whenever you get that good editor or that good beta reader, like they have the balls to tell you, hey, this doesn't work. It's bad. It could be better. Here's a few ways you could get better.
that's actually how you know they're good. That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I love Gino. But he turned into this obnoxious reporter and he just ripped apart. He kept asking questions and just ripping apart everything. As he said in Royce's stream, he's like, I didn't, yeah, he's like, it was a 50 cow full of questions, okay? But it just destroyed the book that first time. That
I
very first lesson. But I know what he was doing because any kind of military training, any kind of body work training, you have to break your body down in order to build it up.
Yeah.
And that's what he was doing to the book. But man, I felt lower than dirt after that first day.
No, like, trust me, like, kind of like boot camp. Like, it's something where it's like everybody has to go through it. And,
Mhm.
and like, I also understand what he was doing is, like, the more questions you're asking yourself about your own kind of like story, the more robust it ends up becoming because
Mhm.
it's more clearly thought out in your head. Um,
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Every time you got stumped, you were supposed to like pretty much take note of that because that's where you needed to fix.
yeah. So I'm also going to ask this: how did you go about developing your own author's voice? Because I know you had quite a bit of help from Daniel P. Riley, as well as Gino. But was there kind of like a moment where you felt like, oh, this is like, even though I've had help, like I still know for a fact this is me speaking, like saying this in my own way, putting my own twist on it. Was there a moment like that?
Oh yeah, it's the whole story is pretty much
Awesome.
my voice. But so like what it was whenever we'd hit an area that I'd have to rewrite, I would actually physically rewrite it and then Daniel would go over it. Some of the things like it turned out I had a leaning word that you actually pointed out unintentionally, I don't think. But apparently I like to say look a lot, so I had went back and took that out completely. Like there's only a couple places where it says look still, and that's just because it's in the dialogue.
I feel like we all have words as writers where we like to say it a lot, and whenever you're trimming it up at the end, it's like, "Oh my god." You never notice it until the end.
But yeah, mine was look. But no, it's still written like me.
Yeah,
I
that's
might not
awesome.
have written I might not have written much prior to this in terms of, but I did write like shorts and then I developed characters for not so much role play, but I developed, yeah, it was for role play. How there's no way to put it, but for like D&D and stuff like that. So the character development's always been there. It was the actual storytelling itself.
I am never going to knock, role playing, as, like, a form of storytelling. I'll actually defend that it's one of the best ways to develop that skill even if you haven't written anything. It's kind of like a primer in a way. But maybe that's just kinda like my own way of seeing it. I don't know.
Well, but I mean, I would do like little short stories for like you know how you RPGs and stuff you'd make your own characters.
Oh, yeah.
Just for fun, I would do short stories of thinking of how that character became a rogue or why magic for this particular character. Just something to add a little bit more fun to the gameplay.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps deepen that whole experience.
But it was never anything super serious. This is the first like hardcore thing. I mean, obviously it took about 3 years, almost 4 years into the making to do, but it, it, so it is in my voice. It just Daniel helped me perfect it, if that
Right.
makes sense, so that it was for an audience and not just me.
It's like refining it. Kinda like,
Hmm.
I would almost use the analogy of, like, taking, like, a piece of ore, and then it's like you're smelting it, you're, like, refining it, burning out all the impurities, and by the end, it's still you, but it's just a lot kind of, like, more polished and cleaned.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh, like the prologue. I've shoot. In order to get the prologue the way I wanted it, I had to write it like 5 or 6 times. But most of that was me just playing around with how I liked it, how it sound when it was read out loud. But the prologue is a story being read to you. You find out it's not really a spoiler,
Yeah.
but you find out the prologue is actually a scroll that somebody finds later on in the story. So for the hardcore readers who read the prologue, it actually has a payoff, but for those who don't, they don't have to read the prologue. It's just there and they discover the scroll later.
I was also curious. So I was asking about author's voice, and I was kind of curious if you had come across this. I've talked to a few writers where they have. This is sort of like where I was originally leading with the point is was there ever a point while writing whether it was like I know we've mostly been talking about like Gino and Daniel P. Riley, but of all the people who have read it, was there any sort of like criticism you think that didn't feel right? Like the suggestions they were giving, did it feel kind of like counterintuitive to the story you were wanting to tell? I
Yes, actually.
oh,
No, okay, like I said, Daniel is a wonderful editor. If you need one, he purposely keeps his prices affordable for indies, and he has payment options, which is
hmm
great. But so there's one part of the story that's still in the book actually. It's a scene towards the end of the book where it allows the main character to see what's going on back home. Daniel, which like I said, I love him to death. But he is right. It kind of slows down the flow because you got all this fast pace, and then all of a sudden you have the characters seeing what's going on back home, so it kind of slows it down a little.
yeah,
But at the same time, I wanted to keep that because that's the heart of the story. You have a dad looking back and watching his family struggle to survive or struggling to help people survive this catastrophe that's ongoing. It makes him force himself to rethink or, to remember why he's doing what he's doing. But at the same time, allows you to draw that connection to his family so you can understand why he keeps putting himself through this. I get what Daniel was saying when he said it was slows it down and should probably be taken out, but I left it in because that is part of who I am.
yeah.
Could be the chick in me, but
No, I absolutely understand. Like, and here's the thing. Like, I've had this experience myself. I know a few different writers where it's like they'll have advice either from their editor or a few beta readers where it's like you understand where it's coming from and you may even like agree with it to a certain extent, but it'll still be kind of like that moment where you at the end of the day you say, "No, like it has to be this way. It just feels right." If that makes any sense.
well, you have a non-soldier fighting a battle to save his family because time is of the essence. The longer this orb is in the atmosphere, the more it's burning the air and is destroying the planet. I mean, granted, if this was real life, it would have already been destroyed, but guess what? It's a fantasy. I gave it 3-day leeway. But
Yeah.
it is actively destroying the planet every second wasted. And so for him to physically see what's happening back home, it it allows the reader to understand just how critical it is and makes you fall up well, makes you want to love the side character's family.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, also curious,
Hmm.
and this will kind of lead into my next overall like bit of curiosity. Which character would you say you found yourself rooting for the most as the story went on?
Story went on or as time went on.
I'll let you be the judge of that.
So poor Hunter gets put through the ringer.
Oh,
Hunter is the Minotaur. Okay, so there is no plot armor on any of my characters but one. And that is because of Snow. If you met RH Snow, you would know what I mean.
she deserves the plot armor, okay? I'll
Well, it was
defend that.
first the original character because she was my original beta reader and she finished the book. She fell in love with Hunter's wife, Lily. So when I went back and rewrote, because I ended up Daniel and I ended up rewriting the entire book. That's actually he used my book as lessons to become a better writer.
Hmm.
So we went by chapter, and my homework was to rewrite the chapters after our lessons, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But every character was totally up for change, was totally up for what I was feeling in the battle to make the battle happen. So plot armor, get sick, get tired, didn't matter. If it kept the flow going, it was gonna happen. Except for Lily. She got snow armor. I kept her the way she was in the original story just because Snow fell in love with her that much.
I mean,
But
that's more than fair. And here's the thing, I don't know if everybody in this chat knows who RH Snow is, but I'll say this, one of the nicest people I've ever met, like, period. Just in general,
She
especially
loves
over the
you
internet.
just for being alive,
Yeah.
and I'm not exaggerating.
Let's read off a few chats here very quickly. Let's see. Squishy Banana Productions just joins us in the chat. Hello, good sir.
Thanks, Squishy. I
Welcome to
can't
the
wait for
stream.
your game, dude.
Oh, I'm
Sorry.
so looking forward to it. Oh, you're good. You're good. Let's see. Zalm also says, "What a cool pick!" Reacting to the artwork I have up on screen. Very nice illustration. I am curious, Maji, who was it? Was it Animated Moon who did this, or was it someone else? Am I getting that wrong?
This one is Animated Moon. So
Okay.
the more live action animals was Skunk's Workshop. The journal sketch looking ones is Animated Moon.
Ah, gotcha. Gotcha. Also, we have Readout in the chat. He says, "No, no, Otter retains his lordship. I recognize private land ownership, and I am not crazy enough to go to war with Otterkind. I'm only goofy enough to wage war against the ghost horse." That's right. We otters are the best. There is no room for debate there. I'm saying that right now, and there will be no arguments with me whatsoever.
If you're curious on how an otter fights with a spear, guess what? The end of the story
Oh,
has a fighting otter.
all right. That's pretty hype. I've only read a little bit of the story so far. I need to read more. I want to see Milak uh getting into a fight with a frickin' spear and just owning
You'll like it. I'm pretty sure you will not be disappointed,
it.
even with his servant guard next to him.
So, adding on to the question I had before, though, about like the character you were kind of rooting for the most, with Herman's character, the Minotaur, who did you find yourself disliking the most, or even kind of like hating? Like, not necessarily in like, oh, I hate this as a writer, but like in story wise, I'm like, oh god, this person's like despicable, or I really don't like them.
Actually, I kind of liked all my characters, and I'm not just saying that because I wrote them.
Yeah,
However, the one I had the hardest time writing, and I actually had asked Daniel to help me kind of anchor him down a little, is Bojidar. Black Knight named him for me, but well, he didn't name him, but he was inspired by him, just like the otter was inspired by you.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
what it is originally Bojidar was written as a space alien, but the problem was that threw off the fantasy aspect. But as you can tell, there's a little bit of sci-fi in just how I set up the orb and everything to it. So it's kind of like a what if a Star Trek guy came down and was from the other's perspective instead of the Star Trek perspective. But that all got changed. Keep in mind, there's been 5 drafts, so a lot of things have been changed. But I wanted Bojidar to be this wild, crazy, just out of this world character. I didn't want him to lose that, even though we changed how his origins was, which I love the change. Actually, the change originally, I don't want to speak too much of it because it'll give some things away. But it hit me walking to work, and I actually quickly got on voice chat and voice chatted to Daniel what my idea was. But because you know how text to speak works, it wasn't the most accurate at explaining it.
Right, right.
But I didn't want to forget it because I was walking to work. But it finally hit me. But he had to help me kind of ground him down so that in a way that he's still crazy and out of the world, but still makes sense in when you're reading him because he is
Yeah,
borderline psycho.
absolutely. And it's always fun writing a character like that too. Usually a challenge too, or at least in my
Yes.
experience.
He was very much a challenge. Like I said, he's the only character I had to actively seek help on developing fully because of that. Because I wanted him to be crazy, but I wanted the reader to understand. Sorry, I got the hiccup. I wanted the reader to understand him.
No, I absolutely understand that. I mean, if any of you guys have read some of my writing, shocker, I don't actually believe a lot of what the antagonists believe. Having to get into that headspace sometimes can be a little taxing. So I can relate. Yeah.
But As time went on, because the story took so long, I was actually feeling more like friggin' Quark. So, for those who don't know, Quark is this big fat knight. He's this old retired guy. He's not really retired, but he's a sellsword. He's not even a real knight.
Hmm.
But he dreams of grandeur. He wanted to be the guy who the bards would sing a song about.
Yeah.
And then, as the story goes on, he finds himself questioning, like, so is this what it means to find the destiny? Is this what it means to be a warrior? And he ends up bonding with the Hydralings. But man, do they poke fun of his weight a lot.
I really
but
like that. I don't know,
but
just like
yeah,
little touches like that, it tickles me.
but some reason I found myself as time went on relating more to Quark, where he's just like, so is this like he's questioning was like if he wasn't so much doing the right thing, but it kind of was questioning his past combined to what's going on in his future. Because the whole purpose of him joining was to for the adventure. It was to feel like a knight, a real knight, not just a sellsword and an old fat guy who didn't really, live up to the hype he wanted.
Quark, I gotta ask, is that the character inspired by Billy Bob Sack, or is it someone else?
Kinda.
Kinda?
The name is inspired by Billy Bob Sack, but I spelled it like the old world cheese.
Oh. We also have a question in chat from Zom. He says, "I was going to ask, what character was the most difficult to write?" We might have already answered
Bojuder.
this.
It was definitely Bojuder.
Oh,
But
okay.
the also one of the hardest ones was the family, because that scene that I was talking about earlier, where Daniel wanted to get rid of, but I just felt it was very important.
Mhm.
That scene came easy, but at the same time, it was really hard because I wanted the emotions to feel real.
Yeah. Oh, I understand that all too well. Sometimes it takes several iterations before you're like, you read it and you're like, "I feel it now." Like, it it took a few times, but you finally feel it.
And the same with the event. I saw you had the drawing of the basically the cataclysm
Yeah.
coming up. That one took a while too because that was a combination of real life feelings and then, of course, epic fantasy of pyroclastic flow, pretty much. But I wanted to make it. I wanted it so that the reader could feel the intensity in it because I have experienced a full solar eclipse. You have a very sudden temperature drop in a matter of like 2 or 3 minutes. And I wanted to capture all of that, but at the same time, build up the tension of, oh crap, you have a volcano about to rain down on you
Yep.
without it being a volcano.
Right. And just imagining, like, the sheer terror and panic and, like, the sudden weather changes and everything like that. That's a lot to take
Mhm.
in.
I do have to say, my biggest fear is the beginnings. Daniel doesn't say or doesn't think it is slow. I thought it was a little slow because but I tried to make it entertaining because you meet the characters and then immediately get thrown into a lot of people are going to say the book's political. There's actually no real politics into it. It's just my way of introducing two different races that hate each other.
It sounds like politics, but it's specific to your world, not our
Yeah, it
world.
is my world politics where Hunter's people. Hunter is kind of a cross between Native American the Minotaur tribe. The Minotauri is what I call them. The tribe is kind of like the Plains Native Americans cross with the Mongolian nomad culture.
Mhm.
I added just enough hints of real world culture to make it feel real, but it's made up, if that makes sense.
No, it makes complete sense. Um,
And then so the Minotauris, you find out the Minotauris trying to move their tribe away from their homeland because they realize that this is solar eclipse uh, speaks doom because of their ancestors' prophecies, which are written down in this metal book. If you guys are familiar with the Bulgarian gold plates, it is the oldest known book in the world. Um, it's 6 pages of gold, very thin gold leaf. Basically, it's a funeral thing that they found in the 60s. But the way I designed it was semi similar to that, but obviously I took some creative license. But it's copper sheets in my story based off of the old Roman laws where they would write their laws on copper sheets and then post them up on the temples for the civilians to read them.
Oh, I love the attention to detail, by the way. I love that it's more than just kind of like some like I don't know, like I feel like a lot of fantasy writers would be like the Elder Scroll was created in like 279 EC or something like that. Mean Meanwhile, it's like you we can tell you've done your research with like especially like copper sheets. Like I love like little details like this that tie it back to actual history. It adds a level of believability to it.
Well, the copper sheet part got cut out of the final edit because we did. Daniel did go through and try to pick up the pacing
Hmm.
on some of the things, but it was originally because in the final book itself, towards the end, there is copper lining on the floor, metal sheets that have been mounted to tiles to conduct electricity. It was part of how the spell worked. You find out it's not revealing anything. It might, if anything, it might confuse the hell out of you right now, unless you're familiar with circuit boards. But so yeah, it's just made out of the same metal, basically, as what's on the floor. It's just because the Minotaurs have taken care of it. It's not green and tarnished like it is on the floors of the abandoned temples.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a unique way of kind of like depicting the world. And honestly, like for me, it's like I'm kind of like a big advocate where it's like I don't really mind the big fantasy tropes, you know, like elves, dwarves, stuff like that, but it's like how you portray the world, like in your own words, that really makes that difference. Like from all that I've seen and heard with Legend of Shalari, you've gone the distance there. And I really got to appreciate that.
I do have dwarves, but I like dwarven technology. Even in Tolkien stuff, I like the dwarves.
I love
I don't
dwarves,
know why.
okay? I think dwarves
But
I don't think dwarves get enough love, okay?
oh, they got plenty of love in my story.
Oh,
But
awesome. Yet
so
another reason to check this out, by the way.
the one thing that I can't stand the Hobbit movies. I really
Oh,
can't.
yeah,
Destiny's
I have my
Chihuahua is
problems with
tolerable.
them.
But the one thing that drove me nuts is that they always had the dwarves standing around the hot molten lava, just breathing it in like nothing's the problem. I didn't want that. I actually had them. I actually had them put on lava suits. You know, like
Oh.
you see in the science grabbing, going up to the magma and stuff.
Mhm.
So they called it Forge Master armor, but it's basically volcano armor. And but their technology in it, I actually taught myself how to make. So what it is if you look up Coke can heaters and Coke can generators, that's the same tech that the dwarves use, but compared to the rest of the world, it's advanced technology because I wanted them to be smarter, but I didn't want to go full steampunk. I wanted it to be something that you can make in the real world.
Yeah, and I love that. I know one of the immediate comparisons I'll make, and apologies if this sounds a little derivative, but I think of, like, Warhammer Fantasy dwarves or something like that, where they're not just
I'm
kind
actually
Oh, go ahead.
not familiar with them.
Uh,
Sorry.
so they're sort of like Tolkien dwarves a little bit, but they're also they kind of lend into a little bit into steampunk just a little bit, where it's like they're not just like, oh, we're just gonna mine and dig too deep and unearth monstrosities. They're also like, hey, we're gonna be the guys who make gunpowder. We're gonna make cannons and like gyrocopters and stuff like that. We're gonna be the engineers.
Mhm.
That's sort of like
So,
a general vibe I guess.
mhm. So my dwarves, they're interesting. So with them, what I did is I did give them like I said, they do make like the simple, basic, like Coke can heaters where you paint, where you put all the Coke cans lined up, paint them black, put a glass panel on, and it absorbs all the heat, and becomes an instant heater. And then, of course, add a little bit of cold water. and turbines, and then all of a sudden you can easily make a generator.
Mhm.
But so they do have a little bit of steampunk technology. Like I said, they use lava gear so that they can withstand the molten metal better. But what I did that makes them unique is I bound them by tradition. So I made them very superstitious,
Ooh.
but they are afraid to go outside of their lessons. That's actually what makes the dwarf Bobbly. You could probably get where that name came from.
Oh, come on.
But
I love that name for a dwarf, okay? It's unique, but
but
it also sounds so much like what a dwarf would name another dwarf.
yeah, Bobbly and Kenley, they're two brothers. But but Bob, King Bob, you could tell where the name came from. But Bobley, he actually originally, this once again not a spoiler. He left the dwarven settlement to go live among the humans because he couldn't pass the forge masters exams. The only reason why he couldn't pass wasn't he wasn't a bad smith. He was actually probably one of the best smiths ever, but he questioned the traditions. He
Hmm.
wanted to invent his own stuff. He wanted to go beyond their silly rules and superstitions.
It's
And
that
the only way to do
ambition.
that Yeah, the only way to do that was find himself among humans.
Yeah. Also, Watcher of the Damned, R.H. Snow, just joins us in the X chat. She says, "Ah, Maji, I love you and Otter so much."
There's a reason why snow armor exists.
Exactly. It's that reason. And she's absolutely earned it.
But yeah, so I tried to make my dwarves different, but at the same time still made them the crafters, the adventurers they are. Like I even gave them a whole battle scene with ballistas and everything. I am so excited to see what people think of this fight.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I am properly hyped myself. For one, there's dwarves. Two, they do really cool dwarf things that and they're being very industrious with the actual earth, which I love. I love it when dwarves kind of like tap into that whole engineering thing where it's like, hey, we're not just going to mine and do smithing, we're actually going to go the next step. It makes so much sense for dwarves, and I love how you're kind of like applying that, or at least from what I'm hearing here, like right
Oh
here as
yeah, no,
well.
they have a whole smithing scene. Bobley and Kenley, I don't want to go too much into detail. I want you guys to read it. But Bobley and Kenley actually bond while they're smithing. Like a guys would bond when they're working in the shop.
Also, we have a question in the chat from Zom. He says, "Without spoilers, are there any scenes you cut during editing that you really liked, but for the sake of pacing or whatever you had to cut? And if you did cut a scene you liked, would you bring the scene back in another way during a future installment or in some other work?" Ooh, that's kind of a tough question.
It is a tough question. So I had to cut a scene in half for pacing.
Hmm.
So, do I say this without spoiling? Alvar. Okay, so Alvar is the tiger on the cover. He he's actually so I told you that the in the prologue the Fae give up the mortality and basically most of the race dies. Well, they don't entirely die. They the mortal descendants of the ones that survived become devianthropes, which is my play on lycanthropes. Why I Anybody who knows me knows I like monster movies and I like werewolves.
Hey, werewolves are
So
cool. I will defend that trope. I always thought they were cool myself.
So what I called them is devianthropes, which is a play on lycanthropes, but it's basically the mortal descendants of the Fey race. And so they are shapeshifters. They usually only take one form. Alvar kind of hints in a conversation with a human because they meet a human not familiar with their race because they have to venture over the mountain to the human side of the world. But he's like most of the devianthropes stay in their animal form. I'm weird. I like coming out of my animal form. I like being a human because the humans fascinate me. There is one human village allowed in the magic side of the world, but not on you know. It gets a little complicated.
Right,
But
right. But I mean, I'm still following.
mhm. but so there was a whole scene where it's still parts are in there. He reveals that he can't use his magic very well because magic comes very naturally to nature. The hydrolings, the minotaurs, I mean, it's part of their culture, it's part of their tribes and how they function. Milak, as I mentioned, can control fey magic. He has a servant helping him because magic comes at a price in my world. So there's a marsh rabbit by the name Flora who joins in on the party so that they could switch off the spells and stuff so they don't end up killing each other.
Hmm.
But it has consequences, like I said. Magic is not freely given in my world. But Alvar struggles to use his. And so the scene was him talking with somebody, and we had to cut it in half of him trying to of this human trying to explain to this creature whose blood is literally magic how the human uses magic because it was the first human that Alvar has ever come across that could use it. Humans don't learn magic very easily. In fact, it's part of the punishment for the Fae giving up their mortality. They strip it away from humans. Humans can gain it, but it's really hard and comes at a price.
I know I keep saying this tonight, but I love a lot of the tropes you're talking about. Another one is magic being rare, being
Mm.
difficult to obtain, and once you've obtained it, there's always a price. As a plot device, that's a ton of fun because it means you're creating drama that feels natural, but it also adds an element of mystery and danger to the world as well. That's what it sounds
Well,
like is happening.
so like I said, the connection to the Hydrolings and the Minotaur race is because they're still in tune with the planet. They can use it a little bit more freely, but it still eventually will kill them if they use too much of it. Because it's in order to use it, they have to use part of their soul
Hmm,
or their essence, as I call it. But
a steep
Milak,
price.
yeah, Milak, there's one particular. It's actually the chapter's called Lord Otter's Resolve, but
Don't
nod.
don't tell me I sacrifice myself. Wait, don't answer that question. I want to find out.
But he's struggling because he's just exhausted. It physically and mentally drains him. Even Alvar, who is his blood is magic, like I said. Alvar gets tired. He's exhausted. Like I said, everybody in the story can get hurt. They can die. In fact, some of the fates were changed between drafts with what flowed with the story. There was no plot armor except for Lily.
Hmm.
So yeah, depending on the draft, it depended on who died, who lived, who
Yeah,
who.
depending on who may or may not live or die, and like all I'll say is this: if you come across an otter where it seems like he's been through a lot, I'll give you all a bit of advice. Just give him a fish or a clam. He'll get right back up. He's a sturdy boy, and he can handle himself. But one fish, one clam, and he's good for life. He'll love you forever.
I think I hope anyway. I don't know if you will or not, but I hope you like the combat between him and his fellow servant.
Oh, trust me, I have a feeling I will. By the way, Watcher of the Damned, R.H. Snow says, your book looks so amazing, Maji.
Oh, thank you, Miss Snow.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm loving the cover. I'm really digging the artwork. And I think there's one image I haven't shown yet. Let me see if I can pull it up. Ah, yes, it is Mr. Tiger.
Yep, Alvar.
Alvar looks very angry there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's in the middle of a fight.
All right. But yeah, so moving on, I am kind of curious. So, what ideas would you say you're brainstorming for like any possible future stories? Or what are you kind of are there any kind of like ideas brewing in the back of your head going forward? What are you thinking?
Mm, Not yet, but I have a way too active imagination. Something's about to pop up sooner or later. The thing is, my goal was to finish this story
Hmm.
before I worked on anything else because I know me. I have the attention span of a squirrel, and so I wanted to make sure this got finished before I started a project, or with my luck, I'd have 6 started projects but nothing to show for it.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I know exactly how you feel, and trust me, finishing a project, it is no joke. Especially the first time around, it can be a little draining. Sometimes
Mm.
having that much needed rest can really rejuvenate you for the next project.
Well, not only that, but like I said, I had to go through basically, I pretty much went through a college course so that I can write this story the way I felt like it could be. I believed in the story, I just didn't believe in the writing. And
Yeah.
so I had to go through training so that I can make the writing better. But because of that, I haven't heard feedback if on anything because I didn't do alpha and beta readers the second time. I trusted that between my editor, all the changes we made and everything, that this was probably as good as it's going to get for the time being until I get it out and see what people think.
So would you say there was a definitive moment where you were like, this is about as good as it's gonna get. Time to put it out.
Um I was scared senseless, but
I feel
you know
that.
that feeling you get when you cuz I mean, there was parts where I'm like, maybe I should tone down the violence a little because technically the age range is for 13 and up. But I'm like, you know what? This is probably part of me thinks it can always be better. You can always make it better. But
Right.
sooner or later you got to draw the line and say, "All right, let's see what the world thinks."
Yeah. No, I understand that completely. I had a similar moment when I had written Star Raids where I went any more editing and I feel like I would actually just be subtracting from the story. All right, time to draw the line here.
And yeah, there's no violence, no language, no modern politics. The only politics is the politics in the world, and it's not nothing extra. It the only thing if you have kids is the violence. That's it,
Yeah.
and alcohol.
Yeah. Well, I'm reminded of like what is it? Return of the King. I think it's the extended edition, but I count it as the definitive edition. I think of the drinking contest between Gimli and Legolas as like a prime example of how even in a franchise that pretty much just about anyone of any age range could more or less enjoy. Like
See,
there's some
here's
pretty
the
crazy
thing.
moments.
I wrote a drinking contest in the beginning of the book before I saw that scene,
Hmm.
but too late to take it out.
Yeah. I mean, some stuff like it's just better to cut, you know. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, like I absolutely understand as well. Like there, it also seems like sometimes like there's stuff you could always improve, stuff you could remove and whatnot. But at some point, you're just kind of going with your gut, and like at the end of the day, you're making an educated guess for, hey, this is the best I can do. Time to actually
Mhm.
see how it fares.
But yeah, no, it's definitely different. Like I said, I haven't heard any feedback yet, so if anybody decides to buy the book, feel free to message me. You won't hurt any feelings or anything. I just want to get better so that I can make a story worth reading.
You've heard her, ladies and gentlemen. If you all are at all curious, I highly recommend you check out The Legend of Jalar. This is from a debut author who is putting in the genuine passion and work to go the distance. And I have to say, like, and here's the thing, I've been following this project for a long time. I've been hearing bits about it from Maji-Chan for the last 3.5 years. And it's always been something where it's been kind of like scratching at the back of my mind. I'm like, I should keep an eye on this one. And that's part of why she's here with us tonight, is I wanted to learn more. I've also got the book myself just in the other room. And yeah, I am excited to learn more.
If you look on the shoulder, there's a tiny little otter.
Yeah, let me try and blow up the image just a little bit. Let me see if I can
He's
get it.
kind of hidden by the shadow, but at the same time, I purposely liked it that way.
Streamlabs is being a little janky. There we are. We have ourselves Mr. Milok. Look at him. He's beautiful. He's the best little guy you've ever seen in your life.
Well, here's the thing: he may come across as an ass, but he's got a big heart.
Hail crab baskets. He says he's small.
He is small.
I may be small, but I've got a big brain. Oh boy. All right. Well, closing this up, ever so slightly. I did have one final question, actually a couple final questions for you, Maji. Um, if you could adapt the story into another medium, whether that be a movie, a video game, a comic book, which would you generally prefer? And I'm gonna.
Honestly,
Oh, go ahead.
think it would probably make a better comic book
Oh, I gotta ask
because
this.
hmm,
Is there any particular writer or artist or like special name you would like kind of like on the team for making that comic?
nah. It's the reason why I say the comic though is well, if you read, there's a lot of description of the scenes and stuff. Like even the opening scene, well, like the first opening chapter, I talk about the rolling green hills that smell of clover and lavender.
Yeah,
So there is a lot of description, which would cut it if it was a comic book, because the imagery would cut out a lot of that. So make this short story shorter.
yeah. But I mean, it is one of those things where it's like I feel like whenever and I've heard a few people talk about this as well, where it's like there's some ideas that don't quite make it into the book, but it's like considering it like being adapted into another form, it's like those ideas reemerge in a way. Like some visual flair or like certain like smaller plot beats that aren't as easily conveyed within the form of prose. I'm kind of thinking of a few of those ideas off the top of my head that I've come across.
Mm. it, if I was to have done a multiple expansion of this, I would have loved to gone more into like the devianthrope culture, because I introduced sworn wardens in the story before the calamity, when Alvar sent word out to the Elder Council that this was going to happen. He actually brought in a couple of other deviant wardens to come in and help keep the peace between humans and minotaurs, just in case something went south. And so I would love to expand more on that, and then like gone and done a whole nother chapter of nothing but the humans and minotaurs fighting, instead of just kind of like showing that there's tension between them when they meet on the bridge.
Hmm.
But there's just I couldn't do that without like super expanding the book, and I was already afraid of pacing issues. Still am a little, but I didn't want it to turn into this big boring Star Wars episode.
No, I completely understand. Like it's one of those things, especially when you make epic fantasy. Like to a certain degree, there's a tolerance for like I I've heard the term phone book fantasy thrown around, where it's like there is a certain amount of tolerance for that, but at the same time, pacing is always a concern. You don't want to lean too far into the world building to where it just becomes
Hmm.
boring.
But at the same time, if anybody ever wants to question or talk about it, I'm totally down. I mean, that's why it became a novel instead of a short story, was because I was building the world in my head.
Yeah. And one thing I gotta say I deeply respect because there's some authors out there where it's like they'll put out their book and they'll act like it's the best thing ever, but it's like anytime there's criticism, it's like kind of falls apart, you know? Like it gets defensive. But I like that you're inviting that criticism because you want to learn. And for me,
Mhm.
that's like one of the best things, especially from us indies, because we're always learning. So, yeah, props from
Well,
me.
Thanks. Anything bad in the book, 100% me. As much as I'd like to say I wrote this big amazing fantasy, in order to write it, before I sat down and wrote every time, I actually had to say a prayer and meditate. So anything good in the book, that wasn't me. I'm going to say that right now. But anything you hate, the pacing issues, the wording, all that, oh, 100% me. I'm mortal.
Yeah. And and here's the thing, like I also see that as a very healthy thing. Like I've also prayed when it's come to my book as well, or books, and like me writing in general. So like yeah, and like there you come across moments where it's like you're at an impasse. You're not necessarily sure whether you should change something, and ultimately you have to leave it with God in that sense. Or
Mhm.
yeah. So I definitely understand where you're coming from. But to my final question, what would you say if you could have given yourself a piece of advice at the beginning of this project? What would you say to yourself?
Um, actually, do it. I don't have regrets. I mean, it took 4 years, but that 4-year journey, I learned a lot about myself. I grew a lot. Um, yes, the criticism was rough. It's still gonna be rough. There, I mean, face it, it's a mini epic fantasy. Anybody familiar with epic fantasies is gonna blow a hole in it. But it was worth it. So the only thing I would tell myself is do it. It's gonna be hard. There's gonna be times where you don't know what you're doing, where you're not sure it's gonna get finished. But the amount of growth, the amount of self-discovery, but more importantly, the amount of support I've gotten from other people over the past this journey, this entire journey, even now, has been completely insane. I don't feel worthy of it, but at the same time, like I said, I have no idea where this is going to go, where it's going to lead, if it's going to lead to more stories. I haven't put any thought into that, but this is clearly an adventure.
Sometimes just discovering it is half the fun.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
For all of you in the chat who have stories in your head that you've either been mulling around for a little while or you are currently working to get into print, I don't think there's any better endorsement to continue on with what you're doing or to start the new next journey into your life in the art of storytelling than what we've just witnessed here tonight. Well, in that case, I would like to thank all of you for joining me tonight. Unless there's any questions left in the chat, I think we got everything. Um, Maji, it's been such a great pleasure to have you on with us tonight and to learn about the legend of Shalar. I'm deeply excited to get into this book, and I have a feeling I'm
Well,
really gonna
thanks.
like it.
I hope so. I hope it's that was my prayer was I can make a story worth reading.
Hey,
So I really hope so.
I'll say this, and I'll reiterate it. I've had a good feeling about this book for a while. I've heard about the struggles that you've gone through with this book, and I'm like, I get the feeling this is genuine. And for me, that is like one of the biggest things I look for whenever I'm like checking out a new book, a new TV show, a new game, a new movie. I want to feel that passion put behind it. And I definitely feel that here.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, as for all of you who have joined us tonight, thank you. Thank you all, ladies and sirs, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you all a wonderful good night and a happy Monday and a wonderful rest of your week. I will see you all again Friday, where we will continue with our wonderful gaming journey. Until next time, good night and squeak squeak.
Bye.